My husband Trevor pushed me down the front steps of our on-base housing unit at Camp Pendleton, California, at 6:47 in the evening on a Wednesday in October, while I was still wearing my United States Marine Corps dress blues uniform from the officers' mess dinner I had just attended 40 minutes earlier. I landed on the concrete pathway on my left knee. My cover, the specific formal white cap Marine officers wear with dress blues, rolled off my head, across the pathway, and stopped in the small strip of grass beside my mailbox. Trevor stood in the doorway of the house. He was wearing a Ralph Lauren polo shirt and a pair of tan chinos he had bought at Nordstrom the previous week with my Marine Corps paycheck. Behind him, standing in the entryway of the house that the United States government had assigned to me because of my rank, was his mother Susan, visiting from Newport Beach for the week, holding a glass of Chardonnay. Trevor said, loudly enough that my next-door neighbor, Chief Master Sergeant Harold Rodriguez, heard him from his own front porch. "Get off my property, Amanda, and don't come back until you decide to be a real wife." Behind me, at the exact same moment I was pushing myself up from the concrete pathway in my dress blues, a Camp Pendleton Provost Marshal's Office patrol truck was, per the specific Wednesday evening housing patrol schedule, turning onto Bougainvillea Drive at the north end of the officers' housing area. The MP corporal driving the truck saw a Marine officer in dress blues on the ground. He turned on his lights. He was in my driveway in less than 60 seconds. The marriage and the uniform. My name is Amanda Bennett. I am 34 years old. I am a captain in the United States Marine Corps, currently assigned to the 1st Marine Expeditionary Force at Camp Pendleton, California, in a logistics support role for the Marine Corps' operations across the western United States. I have served in the Marine Corps for 11 years. I graduated from the Naval Academy in 2014. I was commissioned as a second lieutenant on May 23rd of that year at the graduation ceremony in Annapolis. My father, a retired Marine Corps first sergeant who had served 28 years in the Corps, pinned my first bars on my collar. He died of a heart attack 2 years later, in 2016. My mother, a retired schoolteacher from 29 Palms, California, is my only living immediate family member. I need to tell you about my husband Trevor before I tell you what happened at 6:47 p.m. on Wednesday, October 15th. Trevor Bennett is 37 years old. He is a civilian. He works as a mid-level marketing manager at a beverage distributor in Orange County. When I met him in 2019, he was 32, unmarried, driving a nice car, and living in a small apartment in Costa Mesa. He was, I want to be honest, charming in a specific way that men who have never done anything difficult can be charming. He was good at dinners, he was good at parties, he was good at introducing himself to my Marine Corps friends and making a small joke about how they all seem to have very serious jobs. I married Trevor in 2020 at a small ceremony at the Camp Pendleton Chapel. We did not have children. We did not have children because Trevor had, in 2021, told me, carefully, over dinner at a restaurant in Del Mar, that he was not sure fatherhood was something he wanted to commit to yet. I had said that was fine. I had said we could revisit the conversation in a few years. I want to explain what living in on-base housing at Camp Pendleton means, because it will matter for the rest of this story. The base housing area at Camp Pendleton is located inside the federal jurisdiction of the United States Marine Corps. The land is federal property. The houses on that land are federal property. The residents of those houses, per the specific tenancy agreement each Marine officer signs, are living on federal property under federal jurisdiction. This includes, importantly, the fact that any crime committed on that property, including domestic disputes, assaults, and disturbances, falls under federal jurisdiction, prosecuted by federal authorities, and enforced by the Marine Corps' own military police force. Trevor had, in the 4 years he had lived in that house with me, never fully accepted this. He had, in the specific way that a certain kind of civilian man married to a service member can, resented that the house was assigned to me. He had resented that our neighbors were, without exception, other Marine officers and their families. He had resented that the neighborhood social events were organized by the officers' spouses club, of which he had refused to become a member because, per his exact phrasing at the 2022 Christmas party, he wasn't going to pretend to be a Marine wife just because his wife was a Marine. I had, for 4 years, let these small resentments pass. I want to be honest about why. I was, per the specific timeline of a Marine Corps career, at the exact point where every deployment, every extra duty, every mess dinner, every command-directed function mattered. I was tracking for promotion to major. My commanding officer had, in my previous 3 fitness reports, specifically noted that I was an officer of exceptional potential. I did not have the emotional bandwidth to fight with Trevor at home about small things. I let them pass. Trevor took my letting them pass as permission. By the summer of last year, Trevor had begun making small comments about my career at neighborhood barbecues. He said, once at Colonel Marquez's 4th of July party, that I was married to the Corps first and him second. I did not respond. Because there were 17 Marine officers at the barbecue, and I did not want to have that specific conversation in front of my chain of command. Trevor took my non-response as agreement. By September, Trevor had begun refusing to attend command functions. When the Marine Corps birthday ball came up, the specific annual event that every Marine officer attends with their spouse, Trevor announced that he would not be going because he had a work conference in San Francisco that weekend. There was no work conference in San Francisco that weekend. I would later confirm this through his employer. I attended the Marine Corps birthday ball on November 10th of last year alone. I want to describe the officers' mess dinner on the evening of October 15th, because it is directly relevant to what happened when I got home. The officers' mess dinner was, per Marine Corps tradition, a formal event held in the Officers' Club at Camp Pendleton. It was the annual dinner honoring the incoming commanding general of the 1st Marine Expeditionary Force. It was, per specific written invitation, black tie for civilians, dress blues for Marine officers. The invitation had been extended, per Marine Corps tradition, to every officer in the 1st MEF and to their spouses. I had shown Trevor the invitation in early September. He had said, on that evening in September, that he would think about it. He had said, 2 weeks before the event, "Amanda, honey, I'm just not going to spend 3 hours listening to Marines talk about themselves. You go. You'll have more fun without me." I had, at that point, stopped asking. I attended the mess dinner alone on October 15th. It began at 5 p.m. It ended at 6:15 p.m. I drove home in my dress blues. I turned onto Bougainvillea Drive at 6:41 p.m. I parked my car in my driveway at 6:44 p.m. I walked up the concrete pathway to my front door. I inserted my key at 6:46 p.m. The front door was already unlocked. I opened it. I saw Trevor and his mother Susan standing in my living room. Trevor said, "Amanda, we need to talk." I did not know, at that moment, that his mother Susan had driven up from Newport Beach that afternoon with 2 suitcases in her Range Rover. I did not know that she had, per what she would later tell the Camp Pendleton Provost Marshal, brought those suitcases with her, because Trevor had told her over the phone the previous evening that he was going to end things with Amanda tonight, and had asked his mother to be there for moral support. I also did not know, at that moment, that Trevor had a specific reason for wanting his mother present. Her name was Ashley Marchetti. She was the wife of Captain David Marchetti, who lived at 4213 Bougainvillea Drive, 3 houses down from me and Trevor. Trevor had been having an affair with her since March. The doorway. I want to walk you through the next 4 minutes carefully, because it is the 4 minutes that ended my marriage and gave the United States Marine Corps a federal prosecution. I stepped into the entryway of the house at 6:46 p.m. Trevor was standing in front of the fireplace in the living room. His mother Susan, a 63-year-old former real estate broker from Newport Beach, was standing beside him with a glass of Chardonnay. 2 suitcases were sitting in the entryway. They were not my suitcases. They were the specific Louis Vuitton set Susan carried when she came to visit. I said, "Trevor, what's going on?" Trevor said, "Amanda, please sit down. My mother is here for a reason." I did not sit down. I said, "Trevor, it's a Wednesday. I've been in dress blues for the last 2 hours. I would like to know why your mother is in my living room with her suitcases," Susan Bennett said, in the specific voice of a woman who had been prepared for a script. "Amanda, honey, this has been a very long time coming. Trevor is not happy in this marriage. He hasn't been happy in years. He needs the Corps to take priority somewhere else, and it's not going to be with him." I looked at Trevor. Trevor said, "Amanda, Mom is right. I've been thinking about this for a long time. We need to end this. I want you to leave the house tonight." You can come back tomorrow when I'm at work to get your things. I've packed you a bag. He pointed to a small duffel bag that was, per what I would later note, one of my own gym bags, sitting on the entryway bench. I said, very quietly, Trevor, this house is assigned to me by the United States Marine Corps. It is my name on the housing agreement. You are here as my dependent spouse. You cannot ask me to leave this house. Susan Bennett laughed. She said, Amanda, please, don't hide behind the Marine Corps. This is a marriage. Trevor is asking you to leave, and as his wife, you need to respect his wishes. I said, Susan, this is not your house. This is not Trevor's house. This is federal property assigned to me by my chain of command. I am not going to leave. If Trevor would like to leave, he is welcome to leave. If he would like to file for divorce, he is welcome to file. But I am not walking out of the front door of my own quarters at 6:47 p.m. on a Wednesday evening in my dress blues. Trevor stepped forward. He said, Amanda, yes, you are. He put his hand on my left shoulder. I want to describe what happened next in careful detail, because the exact sequence will matter for the federal charges. Trevor grabbed my left shoulder with his right hand. He turned me, physically turned me, so that I was facing the front door. He put his left hand on my right shoulder. He then, with both hands, physically pushed me forward through the entryway, out the open front door, and off the top step of my front porch. I fell forward down the 3 concrete steps. I landed on my left knee on the concrete pathway. My cover, the formal white Marine Corps officer's cover, came off my head and rolled across the pathway. I heard Trevor's voice behind me say, loudly, Get off my property, Amanda, and don't come back until you decide to be a real wife. I heard the front door close. I heard, from 3 doors down, my next-door neighbor, Chief Master Sergeant Harold Rodriguez, a 58-year-old Marine Corps senior enlisted advisor who had been on his front porch reading the newspaper, say the specific word, fuck. I heard, from behind me, an Air Force civilian family, the Petersons, who lived across the street, say in unison, oh my God. I heard, from the direction of the north end of Bougainvillea Drive, the specific low diesel rumble of a Camp Pendleton Provost Marshal's Office patrol truck. I want to describe what happened over the next 83 seconds, because the timing is important. At 6:47:14 p.m., I was on the concrete pathway. At 6:47:23 p.m., Chief Rodriguez was walking off his porch toward my driveway. At 6:47:38 p.m., the MP patrol truck, driven by Corporal Michael Torres of the Provost Marshal's Office, turned into the officer's housing area. At 6:47:52 p.m., Corporal Torres saw a Marine officer in dress blues on the ground in front of house number 4207. At 6:48:03 p.m., Corporal Torres activated his emergency lights. At 6:48:19 p.m., Corporal Torres pulled his patrol truck into my driveway. At 6:48:31 p.m., Corporal Torres was standing at the end of my driveway looking at me on the ground, at Chief Rodriguez approaching from the north, at the Petersons watching from across the street, and, through the small window beside my front door, at Trevor and his mother Susan, both of whom had, by that point, understood that a federal law enforcement officer had just witnessed the last 20 seconds of their plan. Corporal Michael Torres, United States Marine Corps, walked up my driveway. He was 24 years old. He had been a military policeman for 4 years. He had, per what I would later learn, been on the Wednesday evening housing patrol shift for the previous 6 months. He knelt down next to me. He said, "Ma'am, are you all right?" I said, "Corporal, yes, I'm all right." He said, "Ma'am, can you stand up?" I said, "Corporal, yes." He helped me to my feet. He looked at my knee, which had, per what I could now feel, bled onto the pathway. He looked at my cover on the grass. He looked at the front door of the house. He said, "Ma'am, may I ask what happened here?" I said, very carefully, "Corporal, my husband Trevor Bennett, a civilian, has just physically pushed me down the front steps of my quarters. His mother, Susan Bennett, is a witness. Chief Master Sergeant Harold Rodriguez is a witness. The Peterson family across the street is a witness. I was in dress blues returning from the officer's mess dinner. I am not injured beyond this knee. I would like to file a report." Corporal Torres was silent for approximately 3 seconds. Then he said, into his shoulder radio, Provost, this is Torres. I have a domestic disturbance at 4207 Bougainvillea Drive. Involved parties. One Marine officer, dress blues, uniform on her person, and one civilian male. Physical assault confirmed by witness. Requesting Sergeant Chen and one additional patrol unit. Over. The radio squawked. A voice said, Torres, Provost. Copy, Chen en route. Second unit en route. Estimated arrival, 4 minutes. Over. Corporal Torres said, Copy, Torres out. He turned to me. He said, Ma'am, I need you to remain here in the driveway. Please do not enter the house. My sergeant will be here in 4 minutes. Are you all right to wait outside? I said, Corporal. Yes. He said, Ma'am, one more thing. May I ask your rank and unit? I said, Corporal. I am Captain Amanda Bennett, 1st Marine Expeditionary Force, Logistics Support Command. Corporal Torres came to attention. He saluted me. He said, Captain Bennett, it is my honor to serve you tonight. I saluted him back. Chief Rodriguez, standing 5 feet away in his own service uniform, quietly saluted me as well. Behind the small window beside my front door, Trevor Bennett, who had been watching the last 2 minutes, closed the curtain. Sergeant Chen arrived at 6:52:11 p.m. The 2nd Patrol Unit, Sergeant Diaz, arrived at 6:53:47 p.m. At 6:54 p.m., Sergeant Chen knocked on the front door of my house. At 6:54:22 p.m., Trevor opened it. At 6:56:14 p.m., Trevor Bennett was placed under arrest for federal assault on a service member, committed within the special maritime and territorial jurisdiction of the United States, in violation of 18 U.S.C. Section 113. At 6:57:41 p.m., Susan Bennett was placed under investigation for aiding and abetting. At 6:58:12 p.m., Trevor Bennett was walked in handcuffs down the front steps of my house, the same 3 steps he had pushed me down 11 minutes earlier, by Sergeant Diaz. I was, at that moment, sitting on the tailgate of Corporal Torres's patrol truck with a first aid kit on my knee. I did not, per what my chain of command would later note in the incident report, cry. The commander and the consequences. I want to walk you through what happened over the next 72 hours. Because it matters. Sergeant Chen drove Trevor to the Camp Pendleton Provost Marshal's office at 7:14 p.m. He was, per federal protocol for assault against a service member on federal property, processed for federal booking and transferred to the Metropolitan Correctional Center in San Diego at 11:47 p.m. that night. His federal arraignment was scheduled for the following Monday. Susan Bennett was interviewed at the Provost Marshal's office for approximately 3 hours. She was, per Sergeant Chen's incident report, initially uncooperative. She then, per the same report, reversed her position after being informed of the specific federal statute governing knowledgeable presence during the commission of an assault against a service member. She provided a full witness statement to the Marine Corps investigators. She was released at 11:22 p.m. She was told, per the specific instruction of Sergeant Chen, that she was not to return to Bougainvillea Drive. I was, at 8:15 p.m., driven to the base medical clinic by Chief Rodriguez. My knee was cleaned and bandaged. It was not seriously injured. I was, at 9:47 p.m., returned to my house. The house was, at that point, mine alone. I want to describe the following morning. At 7 a.m. on Thursday, October 16th, Colonel Elizabeth Marquez, the Deputy Commander of the 1st Marine Expeditionary Force, and my direct reporting officer, knocked on my front door. She was, per what she would tell me over coffee at my kitchen table, in the specific position of being informed by the Provost Marshal that one of my officers was assaulted in her quarters last night. She said, Captain Bennett, I want to be very direct with you. What happened last night is going to have consequences for your husband, for your marriage, and for the United States Marine Corps. I want to walk you through what the Corps is going to do, in what order, and in what timeline. Are you ready? I said, Colonel. Colonel Marquez outlined 7 things. First, per federal law, Trevor's arrest under 18 U.S.C. Section 113 for assault within federal jurisdiction would proceed to federal prosecution. The U.S. Attorney's Office for the Southern District of California would handle the case. The specific charge, assault on a service member in her uniform, on federal property, carried a sentencing range of 6 months to 8 years in federal prison, plus mandatory restitution and mandatory federal domestic violence counseling. Second, Trevor's federal criminal record would, if he was convicted, permanently bar him from re-entering any Marine Corps installation for the remainder of his life. This included, importantly, the base housing area at Camp Pendleton. Third, Trevor's dependent spouse status, which had for 4 years provided him with the right to live in on-base housing, use the base commissary, use the base exchange, and receive on-base medical care, would be, effective immediately, revoked. The revocation was not conditional on conviction. It was, per Marine Corps regulation, automatic upon federal arrest for assault on a service member. Fourth, the base housing assignment at 427 Bougainvillea Drive would remain in my name. Trevor would not, under any circumstances, be permitted to re-enter the residence. His personal belongings would be, per Marine Corps regulation, packed by a base logistics team and delivered to an address of his designation, off base within 72 hours. Fifth, per the specific provisions of the Service Members Civil Relief Act as they apply to service members who have been the victim of federal domestic violence, I would receive, if I chose to file for divorce, priority access to Marine Corps legal assistance for the entirety of the proceedings. Sixth, Colonel Marquez said, with a specific tone I had not previously heard from her, "Captain Bennett, you had command discretion regarding whether to attend the officers' mess dinner alone last night. You made the right call. I noted your presence in dress blues. I noted your husband's absence. I am telling you now, in a way I could not have told you before last night, that your commanding general noticed as well. He asked me who your husband was and where he was. I told him the truth. He was, per his exact phrasing, unimpressed. Last night, he is going to be substantially less unimpressed and substantially more impressed with the officer who wore her dress blues to a mess dinner alone." Seventh, Colonel Marquez said, "Captain Bennett, there is one more thing you need to know. Ashley Marchetti, Captain David Marchetti's wife, who lives at 4213 Bougainvillea Drive, has been questioned this morning by the Provost Marshal's office. She is cooperating. She has provided, per Sergeant Chen, evidence of an affair between herself and your husband that began in March of this year. She has provided text messages, hotel receipts, and, this is important, photographs your husband sent her from the interior of this house while you were on a Marine Corps training rotation in July. Do you understand what I am telling you, Captain?" I said, "Colonel, yes, ma'am." Colonel Marquez said, "Captain, Captain Marchetti was informed last night. His marriage is also ending. He has requested a transfer. It will be granted. He wanted you to know that he is, per his exact phrasing this morning, sorry that this happened in your quarters, not his." I said, "Colonel, please tell Captain Marchetti I am sorry as well." Colonel Marquez said, "Captain, I will. I want to tell you what happened over the following 6 weeks. Trevor's federal arraignment on October 21st resulted in an initial plea of not guilty. His federal public defender, Trevor's family, per what I later heard through mutual acquaintances, had chosen not to hire a private attorney because his mother Susan was, herself, under federal investigation for aiding and abetting, advised him to accept a plea deal. Trevor pled guilty on November 18th. He was sentenced to 18 months in federal prison, followed by 3 years of federal supervised release. He was ordered to complete a federal domestic violence counseling program during his supervised release. He was ordered to pay $12,400 in restitution for my medical costs, my legal costs, and the specific cost of my dress blues cover, which had been permanently damaged by the fall on the concrete. He was, per Marine Corps regulation, permanently banned from all Marine Corps installations. Susan Bennett accepted a deferred prosecution agreement on the aiding and abetting investigation. Per the terms, she was required to complete a diversion program and to write a formal letter of apology to me. She did the first, she did not do the second. I did not, per the terms of the deferred prosecution, need to press the issue. Ashley Marchetti and her husband Captain David Marchetti were divorced by the end of the year. Captain Marchetti transferred to Marine Corps Base Quantico in Virginia in January. Ashley moved off base to an apartment in Vista, California. She did not, per what I heard, remain in contact with Trevor. I filed for divorce on Thursday, October 16th, approximately 15 hours after Trevor was arrested. The divorce was, per California law, and per the specific fraud and domestic violence provisions, granted with sole possession of the marital estate to me. Trevor received nothing. He would have received nothing anyway, because he had, by that point, spent nearly all of our joint funds on Ashley Marchetti and on the specific weekend trips to Palm Springs he had taken with her while I was on training rotations. Colonel Marquez pinned my major's oak leaves on my collar on March 15th of this year. Corporal Michael Torres, the young military policeman who had turned onto Bougainvillea Drive at 6:47:38 p.m. on the evening of October 15th and had seen a Marine officer in dress blues on the ground, was present at my promotion ceremony. He was, that day, wearing his newly awarded Navy and Marine Corps Achievement Medal, a specific award given to Marine Corps personnel for exceptional performance of duty. The citation, per what Colonel Marquez read aloud at his own awards ceremony 3 weeks earlier, referenced actions on the evening of October 15th of last year, at the corner of Bougainvillea Drive and Meadowlark Lane, at approximately 6:47 p.m. He was still a corporal. He would, per the Marine Corps Promotion Board that convened in April, be promoted to sergeant within 6 months. After, I want to tell you what my life looks like 14 months later, because it matters. I am, at the time I am telling you this story, a major in the United States Marine Corps. I am currently serving on the staff of the Commanding General of the 1st Marine Expeditionary Force. My office is on the 3rd floor of the Marine Corps Headquarters building at Camp Pendleton, approximately 11 minutes from my house. I still live at 4207 Bougainvillea Drive. The house, the one Trevor pushed me out of on the evening of October 15th, is, as it was always meant to be, mine. I have kept the small strip of grass beside the mailbox where my cover rolled off my head. I have not put a bush there. I have not put a flower bed there. It is, for reasons I have not explained to any of my neighbors, still just a small strip of grass. Corporal Michael Torres, now Sergeant Michael Torres, has, in the 14 months since October 15th, become a friend. He and his wife Elena had me over to their small apartment in Oceanside for Thanksgiving last year. Elena Torres is a first-grade teacher at a local elementary school. She served my mother's cornbread stuffing recipe, which she had asked me for 2 weeks in advance. She is, at 23, the specific age I was when I graduated from the Naval Academy. I have told her, over coffee on multiple occasions, that her husband is exactly the kind of Marine the Corps builds its future on. Chief Master Sergeant Harold Rodriguez retired from the Marine Corps in June of this year, after 32 years of service. He and his wife Maria live in Oceanside now. He does not, per what he told me at his retirement ceremony, miss the Marine Corps. He does, per the same retirement ceremony, miss having me as his next-door neighbor. He told me, with the specific gravity that a Marine chief brings to a farewell, that he had, on the evening of October 15th last year, wanted to walk across my driveway and personally handle the situation before Corporal Torres arrived. He said he was, per his exact words, grateful the Marine got there first, because the chief was about to do something the Corps would not have been able to write around. I told him, "Chief, I know." Colonel Elizabeth Marquez, who pinned my major's oak leaves on my collar on March 15th, was promoted to Brigadier General in September. Her promotion ceremony was held at Marine Corps Base Quantico in Virginia. I flew out for the ceremony. I stood in the second row of the audience. When she was pinned, she looked directly at me from the stage and gave me a very small, very quick nod. That nod meant, per the specific communication that officers learn to give each other after 11 years, exactly the following. I remember Bougainvillea Drive. I have not remarried. I am not planning to remarry in the immediate future. I am, per my current assignment schedule, tracking for a training command position at the Marine Corps Command and Staff College in Quantico in 2027. I will attend that college as a student first. If selected, I will teach there as an instructor from 2028 to 2031. If I remarry, it will be to a man who understands what a dress blues uniform means at 6:47 p.m. on a Wednesday in October. If I never remarry, I will be fine. I have, in the 14 months since October 15th, replaced my cover. The Marine Corps issued me a new one, per regulation. The new cover is, per Marine Corps standard, identical to the one I had before, but I have kept the old one. It is, at this exact moment, sitting on the top shelf of the closet in the master bedroom of the house at 1407 Bougainvillea Drive. It has a small brown scuff mark on the crown from where it rolled across the concrete on the evening of October 15th. I have not tried to clean the scuff off. Every time I open that closet, every single time, I see the scuff. The scuff, per what I have thought about many times in the last 14 months, does not represent what happened to me on that evening. The scuff represents what the United States Marine Corps did about it in the 11 minutes that followed. That is the reason I keep it. If you have ever been the service member, or the family of a service member, who was told that your uniform did not matter inside your own home, I want you to leave one word in the comments below. Just one word. The name of the person who wore the uniform, or the name of the person who stood beside you when the uniform was tested. Say the word. Because someone in this comment section is going to see your word, and they are going to remember that the piece of fabric on your shoulders means something the moment a stranger in the same fabric turns onto your street. And if this story reminded you that the Corps takes care of its own, subscribe. I'll see you there.